Film Club.
Thank you very much for joining us for another episode of Film Club. I'm one of your hosts, Andy Harrison, and with me, as always, it's Andy Donaldson.
Hey.
Every single week in Film Club, we invite you along to watch a film with us, and this week we invited you to watch A Boy and His Dog.
A boy and his dog can go walking. A boy and his dog sometimes talk to each other. A boy and a dog can be happy sitting out in the woods on a log, but a dog knows his boy can go wrong.
A Boy and His Dog, which is about a bloke and his dog Rufus, and they scrounge around the desert for food, sex, and then eventually they find an underground place.
Did you just call his dog Rufus?
Yeah, continuation from last week where I assumed the dog's name was Rufus. It's actually Blood, but I prefer Rufus.
So, A Boyo and His Doggo. Neither of us had actually seen this film beforehand. And it's
What
actually...
made you...
Sorry, go on.
What made you recommend it?
So a Boy and His Dog is... It's kind of become like a bit of a cult film over the times. I know when this originally came out, it didn't do that well. It was kind of like a mixed sort of response to it. Over time, it got a bit of a cult following because of like its weird sort of like quirks and tics and stuff. And then the reason it was kind of on my radar, and I think the reason it's had a bit of a resurgence over the last 20 years or so, is it obviously is a big influence on Fallout.
It's interesting you say that because the first bit of the film obviously actually refers to Rufus as dog meat, and obviously you got the part about downstairs, in the down under, which looks like a vault sort of thing.
Yep.
Or like reference to a vault, and all these kind of factors, and like they look like raiders and all this. So I was really digging the Fallout vibes. It was like Mad Max with Fallout kind of theme.
I was quite interested as somebody who is a big Fallout fan to go back to this and see sort of its influence in terms of how this has influenced the franchise and not just the first game. Like obviously the first game took a lot of aesthetic choices from it. In particular, the entrance into the underground world, that metal hatch is used almost verbatim in Fallout 1. It's the entrance to the Brotherhood of Steel. You can see a lot of you're right, the whole dog meat thing and dog meat turning up in multiple games. There's lots of the underground world feels a little bit like the Institute, especially when they're coming above ground.
Yeah,
they're
Institute
using
is
that
another thing as well.
those little things on their feet to make sure they don't get dirty. It was interesting. There's lots of sort of Fallout 3 and when it's all these little satellite towns that are made up of scraps that people have scavenged and put together. And then to move on from Fallout a little bit, you're right. Boy and His Dog was a big influence and something we didn't actually mention when we did the Mad Max series, because A Boy and His Dog predates the first Mad Max by a couple of years.
Oh, I didn't know that. That makes sense now.
And although I think as we said when we did the first Mad Max, the first one doesn't really feel quite like what a lot of people know to be Mad Max. The series doesn't really have its aesthetic yet. When you do get to Mad Max 2, Road Warrior, you get the sort of the Mad Max vibe, and you get that sort of post-apocalyptic grunge with broken down biker styles.
Yeah.
Now, that's already in A Boy and His Dog. There's already a lot of that in A Boy and His Dog, especially that guy who steals the food from at the beginning. Yeah,
I was just thinking that they build their ditches and stuff. He's like, yeah, you go, sort of thing, let him go. So I was really, really digging the relationship of the boy and Rufus. How Rufus almost reminded me, and I hope you got this I hope you got this kind of link as well. I felt like I was back in Knights of the Old Republic, and you're on Tatooine, because obviously kind of deserty planet, and you run into HK-47, and that kind of cynical attitude that Rufus has on the boy, and even the kind of style of the voice, very, very much sounded like HK-47. I was like, I'm digging this.
Yeah, I agree. I really like their back and forth, and I think that Tim McIntyre, the guy who voiced Blood, he actually does a really good job at giving you this sort of depth of a dog who is a character who he's very lost in thought a lot of the time, and he's a very intelligent creature, which is it's very funny to have this sort of cute little dog come being the more intelligent character between the two of them, and then held up by Don Johnson, who does immensely heavy lifting because basically he's acting opposite a dog for half this film.
And you got to give credit to the dog as well. That dog's well trained, the way it looks around at the right moments, and the way
yeah,
it has the chemistry with Don Johnson, with Vic with the boy.
Does a great job, like a really good job. And do you want a little bit of sad information here?
Oh God.
So there was talk of doing a sequel to this, but the dog died not that long after the film came out. So they couldn't. It was going to be a girl and his dog.
So my question is, Andy, what did you think of this film?
Oh, okay. So in terms of like actually, does this film work for me? No, not really. Like I think this film is more of a curiosity. I think it's got charm. It's got personality. It's sort of like it is silly and it's fun and it gets that sort of black humor in quite a cool way. Not to harp back to Fallout so much, but obviously Fallout built upon that sort of Americana rubbing up against post-nuclear apocalypse. And I think that A Boy and His Dog obviously was trying something with that sort of tone many years before it would go on to be successful with Fallout. I think it should be commended for a lot of that. I think that the first half of the film is much more interesting than the second half of the film. And it's in that Mad Max post-apocalyptic wasteland. I think that it's much more interesting than when they go underground and you get the sort of like Big Brother, We Happy Few dystopian, but in a overtly governed way. What about you?
I didn't like it. So I thought it started off really well with the concept, the theme, obviously the draws to Fallout. You have the lovely aesthetic, as you're saying, like the Mad Max style, the Fallout sort of stuff. That as I mentioned, the chemistry between the boy and the dog, everything built really well. It was really cool. It was them surviving. I was thinking, you got this boy who lacks morals or lacks intelligence, and you could see a character actor at the film of this person like rising to something. And if not, I mean, we'll look at something like Turbo Kid we reviewed ages ago, and we look at there's no really kind of story arc where he becomes a better person. It's just it's about the kid. It's just a day in the life of the kid or a month in the life of the kid, much like this. Now the pacing of this film is shockingly bad. I find the scene as soon as you start going to the cinema, that cinema scene is 15 minutes of just darkness and him watching the cinema and a little bit of talk, and then it gets there and then he meets the woman, and again that's drawn out. It's really heightened by the part where they've got the screamers. I think that's really cool. Obviously, you've got super mutants, which is kind of like the correlation between that and Fallout. And it's really cool.
With
Why
that,
not drill, more of the kind of screamers? Like the fact you couldn't see them or you barely saw them, it's in the dark, they're screaming horribly. It was really cool. But then they missed that, and then they forget the worst thing about this film. I mean, the best thing about this film, the chemistry between the boy and his dog, the namesake of the whole film, and then just sack that off for the last half hour, last 45 minutes.
That's what I mean.
Like, come on.
I think the film really feels like a film of two halves. The first half feels like it's all about that wasteland, and it feels like it's about to build up to the screamers, and it feels like we're going to see what their impact is on the world. And then you're right, it's about a boy and his dog. And then it feels like the second half, they had this other idea about going underground and we're going to leave the dog behind. Instead, we're going to focus on this woman and how she's manipulative. It was bizarre. The only saving grace between like having both of those stories in the same film, and especially Suzanne Benton's character, the only saving grace here,
Quilla,
because she is fundamentally manipulative, and like I think as an audience member, she winds you up because she flips on a dime so often. And
very
she
much.
goes from being like, oh, you're going to do exactly what I need you to. I'm going to manipulate you to.
When she has the gun.
I'm just kidding. Like, I love you.
Exactly.
Don't leave me. So she's immensely just this bizarrely written character. But then the one saving grace, the thing that made it all worth it, was that joke at the end. Oh my
The
God.
finishing line.
The fact that they eat her. What the fuck? That's absolute. I was genuinely the funniest part of this entire film. And the thing that made me go, that's fucking funny.
I just want to see more of the relationship of the boy and the dog and see like some sort of character arc, and it just kind of like loses itself about 30 minutes in.
Yeah.
And I lost interest, mate.
I
But,
agree.
you
Like,
know,
it's not. I don't think it's a satisfying story at all. Again, I will give him credit for sort of like trying to make us care about a main character who's a complete asshole. Like he's not.
Yeah.
He's not meant to be a likable protagonist, I don't think, because we're introduced to him as an opportunistic rapist. We're kind of introduced to him as somebody who will happily kill. We're introduced to somebody who will lie. He'll break his promise to his dog, but he lives in a world that isn't pleasant to him. So you can understand enough that you will kind of go on the journey with him. I can kind of give them a little bit of a appreciation for that. But on the whole, I totally think you're right. I don't think this comes together that well.
The saving grace is obviously the legacy it brought forward, being, as I mentioned, Mad Max and Fallout.
100%. There is A Boy and His Dog. You can let us know what you thought of A Boy and His Dog down in the comments below. But Andy and I are going to be back once again next week, where we're taking a recommendation from N to the power of N.
Oh,
We're going to take a look at another William Friedkin's film with the Sorcerer.
that's it. Rest in peace, Rufus.
Until then, get watching.